Welcome everyone. My name is Ivanka Benuis, Director Sales Programs at SAP. I would like to welcome you to today's expert session. Today we're here to gain new insights into the profitability of your business, and I'm very pleased to introduce and welcome our speakers today, Thomas Heaney and Robert Pack from our trusted partner MSG. MSG and SAP have a long relationship, over 20 years now, and I'm very pleased that we could accommodate these partners to talk with us today. We have some product information for you. We plan to show you a demo, and I would like to offer you as well putting your questions in the area for the questions. So we will look at them and answer all the questions after this call. Okay, with that being said, I would like to hand over to Thomas. Thomas, welcome, and thank you for joining, and let's get started.
Great. Thank you, Ivanka, and thank you to everybody for joining. We're going to jump into it in a second, but first, a few quick introductions. My name is Tom Heaney. I'm a Senior Account Manager at MSG. I've been in the SAP space for about 6 years now, and before that, I ran the plan and forecast process at a Fortune 100 company. Joining me today is my colleague, Robert Pack. Robert?
Hi, everyone. This is Robert Pack from MSG Global. I am the delivery lead for SAP's Profit and Performance Management. I've been working with SAP since 2005 and has been a consultant for about the past 10 years. I will be doing the demo of the product today, and thank you for your attendance and looking forward to it.
Thank you, Robert. Together, Robert and I represent MSG Global, as Ivanka mentioned, a longtime software development partner of SAP's. Founded in 1980, we've been co-developing software with SAP since the early 90s. We're an independent firm based in 25 countries with 3 global service centers in India, the Philippines, and Serbia. Okay, we've had steady year-over-year growth in both headcount and revenue with about 900 million euro and a little bit over 7,000 employees. So the question we're going to answer today is, how can your business change with a better view of profitability? Before we do that, it's helpful to look at an organization and the different perspectives within that organization that have a view of profitability. So you have your CEO, your CFO, your COO, and your CIO, and they're all going to have their eyes on the same prize or all have the same goal of profitable growth, but they're going to approach it with different lenses or from different angles. So first you have your CEO, and they run the show. The CEO cares about driving profitable growth, and they do so by fostering an efficient and effective decision-making. Ultimately, they're your chief strategist, tasked with answering some of those tough questions and making those tough decisions. And next, you have your CFO. Now, what does a CFO care about? They care about being able to drill into cost and revenue data down to the lowest level of detail. They care about the financial health of the organization, and to understand that, they have to be able to take a look at both the total picture and the granular level of detail. So for a manufacturing firm, this might be component or SKU level, and for a financial institution, this might be individual policyholder or individual risk. Ultimately, the CFO cares about driving profitability. Okay, next we have our COO. The COO's role can differ greatly depending on the organization and the industry, but today we'll approach it from a manufacturing perspective. Okay, the COO is going to ask questions more like, is my production line efficient? Am I getting the right price for my raw materials? The COO is also going to care about how internal and external factors impact their day-to-day. So on the internal side, am I using a class of machinery that's out of date? And can I replace it with a more expensive class of machinery that is more efficient? And on the external side, is a environmental change what's causing my suppliers to charge me more for my raw materials? Ultimately, the COO cares about driving operational performance. Lastly, you have the CIO, whose job is difficult but pretty straightforward. They're asked to deliver better, faster, and cheaper. Okay, and to do so, they have to deliver a platform that offers the highest quality access to the data at the lowest level. And this platform must be flexible and business-friendly. So ultimately, they're asked to support the business with all of their data needs. Okay, so now that we've taken a look at the perspectives, let's take a step back and look at a hypothetical company and their understanding of profitability. Okay, so this company is a manufacturing firm. that produces raw materials and finished goods in both Brazil and the United States. If they do not sell their goods in Brazil, they ship them up to the US to be sold here. Okay, their current profitability landscape is that they understand their profit down to the country or the company level, but they have no understanding of their profitability at the SKU, component, etc. level. Okay, so what's changed for this business? A new tax law has provided a favorable shift in taxes towards the United States. Okay, so the CEO, CFO, and the COO are going to put their heads together, and they're going to say, with this new tax law, should we shift all production out of Brazil and into the United States? And as I just mentioned, they don't have an understanding of their business down to that granular level of profitability, SKU, component, etc., that they would need to answer this question. Okay, so they're going to pull the CIO, and they're going to say to the CIO, what can we do to achieve this level of granularity? And this is where we'd like to shift gears and talk a little bit about the solution, SAP Profitability and Performance Management, otherwise known as FS-PER, and how this solution can help you achieve this level of granularity. Okay, before we get into the actual solution, we need to cover the foundation as it's an integral part of what makes FS-PER what it is. Okay, and this foundation is SAP HANA. For those that don't know, simply put, for this conversation, HANA is a platform that provides near real-time access to your data. Okay. It leverages in-memory technology, so it's very fast and powerful. It could be on-prem or on the cloud, so it's flexible. And it has superior integration to any and all data sources. Okay, and why it's important to cover this foundation is because FS-PER is 100% natively designed, built, and run on SAP HANA. Okay, so unlike other tools that might be retrofit to work on HANA, that have to go down to another layer before they can get down to that powerful HANA layer, FS-PER does all of its calculations directly at that HANA layer, which is going to improve speed and power drastically. Okay, so now that we've covered the foundation, let's jump into the actual solution. The solution is made of 3 parts, and we're going to cover them each individually. The first is the business data aggregator, and this is how you're going to map your data into the tool. Okay? It's going to do so without any data replication, meaning you're not going to make a physical copy of your data and transfer it from your source system into FS-PER. Okay? You can connect to basically any and all data sources, which we'll get to in a second. Now, not having to make a physical copy of your data is going to save a lot of time. It takes a lot of time to copy gigabytes or terabytes of data from one system to another. It's going to save a lot of space because, again, storing gigabytes and terabytes of data takes a lot of space. And hopefully it's going to eliminate data translation issues that you might have bringing data from one system to another. And ultimately, those 3 things are going to combine to save a lot of money for the company. Okay, so here I put up on the screen some examples of data sources that we can connect to. Again, it's source agnostic, so it doesn't matter if the data is SAP, non-SAP, structured, or unstructured. So over to the left, you have your non-SAP databases like Hadoop or Teradata. Then you have your SAP suite of applications, S4, ECC, BPC, FSDP, which is the Financial Services Data Platform. Basically, if it's SAP, it can connect natively to FS-PER. Next, you have your third-party functions and apps. This is if you have a website that maybe lists the prices of exchange rates or a barrel of oil if that's one of your raw materials. This is where you could connect directly to that app or the website. Additionally, you have your custom programs, custom applications that a lot of companies create in-house. We can connect to those as well. Okay, and the last bucket over to the right, this other bucket, this is to show that, of course, we can bring in your CSV files, your Excel files, all that stuff that all companies have. Okay, so we've brought our data in. Again, no data replication. We have a virtual connection to the data. Now the calculation engine is where you're actually going to do those calculations, those rules, et cetera, to get down to that profitability that we're talking about. So this is the meat and potatoes of FS-PER, and we like to think of it as Excel on steroids because it's doing kind of what Excel does, but a lot more powerfully. We break it into 2 buckets to help explain it. One's pre-configured functions and one's best-in-class solutions. Right? In the Excel on steroids example I just mentioned, pre-configured functions are kind of like your sum functions, your VLOOKUPs, etc. They're going to be a lot more complex than that and a lot more robust and powerful, but that's the way to think about them. The best-in-class solutions on the left, these are your end-to-end, out-of-the-box solutions to common use cases. And this is more like an Excel workbook, where you're going to take a series of formulas, a series of functions, and run your data through a story to get an answer, in this case, granular profitability. Okay, so looking back on the right at the pre-configured functions, the first one I want to cover is enrichment. Okay, and this one's really important because this is one that a lot of folks are actually looking at the tool just to do this process. Okay, this is the ability to take data from many disparate data sources and turn it into one version of the truth. So an example, let's say your company uses non-SAP database, plus you have data sitting in ECC. You have a few homegrown or custom applications and a bunch of CSV files, and you want to bring them all into one place. With the enrichment tools that come out of the box with FSPer, you'll be able to join the data, harmonize it, and get it to a place where now you can do the next calculations that you would need to do to get into that level of profitability. In addition, you have your valuation and your calculation functions. These are your NPV, your ROI calculations, driver-based planning calculations, and even access to the predictive analytics library. Okay, over on the left, again, these are your end-to-end solutions. Okay, this all comes out of the box. The first one I want to talk about really is allocations. And this is a process that would need to be done to get down to that level of profitability. Okay, so all major allocation methodologies are supported out of the box. You have top-down, activity-based costing, waterfall, or stair-step. The beauty here is, in addition to just doing things powerfully with the speed of HANA, the user interfaces are set up so there's no heavy scripting or coding. Okay, so the users are actually going to go in themselves, and they're going to be able to select the sender, the receiver, and what they want to allocate on, and the system will do that for them. And this is a nice thing because in the future, as businesses change, the users will have the ability to go in and change things themselves without bringing in IT or a third-party company. Okay, in addition to allocation, you have your risk and solvency calculations or stories, and then you have transfer pricing, which is funds transfer pricing and liquidity transfer pricing for a bank, and operational transfer pricing for a manufacturing or a CPG firm. Okay, so we've brought our data in, no data replication. We've run our out-of-the-box rules and calculations on the data, and we've gotten our answer, and we feel more comfortable about our SKU-level profitability in this example. Right? That's only half the battle. The next step is being able to simulate the impact of changes and to be able to slice and dice the data to view it the way you want to view it. Okay, and that's what the simulation application does. So if we start over on the top left, the first thing we'll see is what-if scenarios. Okay, this is the ability to say, okay, I like my answer, but what if the business changed, or what if something external changed? An example, if my SKU level profitability was based on a barrel of oil, which is one of my raw components, being $50, what if that barrel of oil changed to $55? What would that do to my overall result? And what would that do to each individual SKU? Now, after that, you're going to want to report on that. So you have out-of-the-box tools to be able to see side by side the $50 impact and the $55 impact, graphically with the ability to export to Excel. In addition, taking that one step further, one big differentiator of FSPer is the ability to run multiple simulations at any given time. So instead of that singular variance of $55 versus $50 for a barrel of oil, what if you wanted to know what every dollar change from $30 a barrel all the way up to $70 a barrel would cause? Okay. Because it's the power of HANA, you have the ability to do that in near real time. So you're taking a process that would typically take 24 hours, 48 hours to do, and you're boiling that down to minutes. And next we have forecasting. This is the ability to offload complex calculations from BPC into FSPer. So anywhere that you have a bottleneck in your planning process, you can take those calculations out of BPC and put them into a native calculation engine like FSPer. So I know from my time in planning, plan allocations was a big bottleneck for us. It took us about 24 hours to run that process, and every single time we did a plan or a forecast, we would have to run that process at least once. Now, what if you could take that 24-hour process and turn it down to 10 minutes by taking it out of BPC and into FSPer? And what if the user never even had to leave BPC to run that process? They click a button, It happens in the back end, and the data is put back into back into BPC for them. Okay. I should stop here and say, I mentioned before the tool is source agnostic. It's also destination agnostic. So I just mentioned putting data back into BPC. Once you're finished in FSPR running your calculations, you could put the data back wherever you want. You could put the data back into your general ledger. You could put the data back into S4, ECC, BPC, wherever you want to put that data. Okay, next we have business intelligence, listed here as BI, and this is the ability to slice and dice all of this data. Okay. Multi-dimensional, so you can swap out dimensions, you can put in cost center, take out cost center, you can see down to the lowest level of detail or aggregate all the way up to top of house. It's basically one big in-memory pivot table. Additionally, you can export to Excel, so you can do Excel work, which a lot of businesses are comfortable with, or leverage any other existing BI tools you might have, like Business Objects or SAP Analytics Cloud. And last, we have auditability, and this is the ability to facilitate workflow and security across all of this data. So if you want to say Tom Heaney is allowed to see the general ledger data, but not touch it, but Robert Pack is allowed to actually send things back to the general ledger, here's where you would change that. Okay, just to recap, you have your business data aggregator, which is pulling in all your data from any source systems. It doesn't matter if the data is SAP, non-SAP, structured or unstructured. And it's going to do so with zero data replication. So you're not making a physical copy of your data. You've brought it in. Now the calculation engine is going to run rules, calculations on that data to get you to your answer. Okay, this is things like enriching your data or bringing data from multiple data sources or running user-friendly allocations and transfer pricing. And lastly, we have the simulation application, and this is where you'll run what-if scenarios, simulate the impact of changes, and slice and dice your data. Okay, one crucial differentiator for FSPR versus other solutions is the end-to-end transparency and traceability. And I mentioned it quickly before, but other solutions, as they're doing, let's say, allocations or trying to get to that granular profitability, to try to maintain a speed that's acceptable, they will aggregate the data. So it'll go through a process, it'll aggregate, it'll go through the next process, it'll aggregate, and it'll get to a final result. Now, everything that happened before the final result becomes a black box that the user cannot see into. With FSPR, you do not destroy any of that lower level of detail. You're not aggregating throughout the process. So when you get your final answer, you can drill back through every step in the process. So let's say you have your allocation, it's run, you look at the answer and you say, I'm not comfortable with this answer, I wonder where it went wrong. You can look through every step in that allocation process all the way back to your source system to determine what happened and why it is the way it is. So I mentioned before, FSPR is a business-focused solution. Okay, the goal is to have the users making changes and doing the work themselves and not having to rely on constantly going to IT or a third-party company to come in and help out. All right, there's 3 out-of-the-box roles, and they all can be handled by IT, business. It doesn't matter. It's not something that's, again, no heavy scripting or coding or anything like that. You have your modeling user who's going to understand your data and your processes. You have your execution and simulation user. They're the ones that are going to be going in and maybe changing an allocation rule if things changed, or adjusting a transfer pricing logic, something like that. Okay, lastly, your analysis user, they're going to go in and run what-if scenarios, simulations, and slice and dice the data. Okay. Ultimately, the important thing is over to the right, the decision maker, they'll feel empowered and be able to go into the tool themselves to make these changes to what-if scenarios, so making that $50 versus $55 barrel of oil change that I mentioned before on the fly in real time. Okay, here are a few real-world value examples of customers that are working with FSPR. So the first one is cost allocations. A company came to us and said, we have a 20-hour allocation process that's just far too long. We need it to be reduced. By putting that process into FSPR instead, they shrunk it from 20 hours down to 10 minutes. But additionally, they provided enhanced transparency with that end-to-end traceability. So now, if the number isn't the way they expected it to be, they can drill back through to see why it changed. Okay, next, we have high data volume. This one's not even about the speed as much as it's about they had a process before that couldn't be done because they had too many records. So this company had 6 billion records that they wanted to run some pretty simple calculations on, and they just couldn't do it with their existing tools. But with a tool like FSPer that's doing everything natively to HANA, they were able to take all of those records and put them in one place and run their calculations on in less than 5 minutes. So you have another cost allocation one, which I won't go through. Decentralized planning is a big global firm that has an allocation process that goes across multiple countries, and it was taking them 48 hours. And many times that 48 hours at the end, it wouldn't have even worked. So they said, we need this fixed. We need to get this down a lot shorter because we'd like to run this cycle multiple times per month. That 48 hours was reduced to about an hour. And now not only are they able to run it, they're able to run it multiple times per day and simulate the impact of changes. Okay, and lastly, we have multi-year simulations. This is kind of that example that I gave before. This company didn't want to say, I want to run one what-if scenario at any given time. They said, I want to run 50-plus what-if scenarios at any given time on all of my data. So now, instead of having a singular point forecast, they have a range of possibilities that they'll fall between. Okay, here's a view of some of the common use cases. There are definitely other ones, and your company might have custom use cases that fit better. But here's some of the ones we found out in the industries. So first, you have replace PCM. PCM is a tool that does similar work that FSPer does. It's not native to HANA, so it's not going to have that speed and power benefit that FSPer does. Okay, planning and forecasting we talked about a little bit, but predictive modeling and the ability to integrate with VPC. You have your transfer pricing, again, funds transfer pricing and liquidity transfer pricing for banks, and operational transfer pricing and tax optimization for CPG, manufacturing, et cetera, companies. Okay. Cost and revenue allocations, that's kind of the big use case here because you need to do that to get down to that granular SKU level profitability. Right, then you have risk and solvency, important for the insurance companies, and pre-configured functions like your simulations, your data enrichment, and valuations. Okay, so now we're going to shift gears, and I'm going to kick it over to Robert, and he's going to actually demonstrate the tool and its capabilities.
Thank you, Tom. And again, hello to everyone. I will walk you through a short demo of SAP's Profitability and Performance Management. So let's start the demo. Okay, when you first start accessing FSPer, you can access it through the Fiori Launchpad, where you have role-based tiles available for end users. So the first one that we're going to look at is the My Reports tile there. And then once you click on it, you will end up on a screen like this, where the left-hand side, you have different environments. And when you click on one of them, you have different elements that goes into that reporting. So you can highlight one and hit the launch button, and then each one of those elements are given area on the right-hand side to display their information. So over here, we got various different pieces of information. On the right-hand side, I'm going to focus on that product P&L one. And you can actually increase the size of that box so that you can view it more clearly. And then it will open up on a chart, but you can also display the data on a grid format. And as you can see, you see a P&L there with the GL accounts down the rows and each product on the column. So in fact, what you have there is a by product P&L with income on the top and expenses down at the bottom. And then the drill down is available to you. You can hit that Show Hide button on the top left-hand corner, and then now you see that same report, but now with all the other available characteristics down on the left-hand side. So whether it's company or cost center or profit center you would like to add onto your report, you can just click on a button and add that characteristic to your rows or column. Once it's available to you, now you can have lots of other manipulation like sorting or totaling to display that data. So what we have at the end of the day is a P&L by product and by services. And you can use those icons on the top right-hand corner to interface with Excel. That analysis for Excel there on the button on the top right will actually launch analysis for Office for SAP. And what's really nice about this interface is that you don't have to build a query. FSPer will build a query for you, which is a prerequisite for analysis for Office. Coming back to My Reports main screen, you can take a look at some of these charting that's available to you. And then you're not just stuck with this one chart. You have various different choices of chart types, whether it's column-based or vertical or horizontal or 3D choices. This interface also comes up with this nice value flow diagram, where it's a visually enhanced way to view how the values are flowing from the source information to the ultimate destination. So here you can see it's color-coded to see the different effects of the allocation process. So it's sourcing from one group of characteristics, having a staging area, and then ultimately to the ultimate destination of how that allocation would flow. So it's context sensitive, and if you hover, the values are available for you to study. So far we've seen charts and grids on the right-hand side, but this interface can also update information. So by hitting that pencil here, you can actually use this screen to actually interface or update data. And also, as far as updating data goes, you can see that on the left-hand side, I have these things called parameters. I only have one at the moment there that has to do with salary growth percentage, but that's my variable drivers. So if you think about calculation engines that are out there and they're using those variables, whatever is on the right-hand side that's going to be using that variable to do the calculation, I can come in here and do a simulation on that, meaning I can hit the edit and then change that value to whatever is appropriate or what I would like to simulate it to, and then update the number, and then I can re-execute or simulate by hitting that run button. And all the presentations on the right-hand side that uses that parameter will update using the new value. So as you can see, the salary value has changed, and any other graphs or charts that was using that parameter is also updated. So let's just think about that for a second. Price of a barrel, inflation rate, interest rate, you name it. The drivers that make sense to your business and that you would have to do simulation on, it would go through all the calculations that are involved in this reporting, and it will update it in this one central location. So real powerful tool there. Okay, coming back to the main landing page, what does it really take to build those reports? One prerequisite is the processes. So when you come in here, you actually specify what are the elements that goes into your reports. So for that profitability environment, there are all these different results and input schedules and so forth that are built as a template, and then you deploy them, and then they're available for you on your reports once this process is executed. So one very important one is the execution step there, and you can actually do a deep dive on what it takes to do to calculate that. And this execution flow diagram will show you all the different functions that are necessary. And here you can see all the joins and allocations that are needed to make those reporting work. So really nice visually to see how the data flows from one function to another, and to examine where you might have some deviation or variances that you need to explore. We'll take a deep dive into the middle function there. And then from right at this place, you can actually jump to an analysis or see how it was actually configured. So which is a really nice way, so you don't have to go and hunt for that function in your modeling screen to go see it. So it's a direct link to there. And then here you can actually see which function is specified as the sender, and then which one is the receiver for this allocation function. So the sender can be a previous function or a source table. Here, when I go into the rules section, I can actually see what the sender and receiver rules are in more details. And here, the sender, which value am I sending, or my key figure, those things are specified in the drop-downs that are available for you. Again, no coding, just selections through these input schedules. And the receiver, here's the driver base. What am I going to base my allocation on? And that's the value that I specify. And then doing those various rules, I can execute this allocation. So on the left-hand side, it actually finds that allocation in that list of functions on the left-hand side that are organized into different folders to help the end user visualize how the data is flowing from the source to the ultimate destination. So usually on the top, we show the source data that are coming through, whether it's coming from SAP GL or from some kind of a planning source or from some third party. So there it is. We're seeing some GL data, and you can see the different fields that are represented there. You can actually edit this data directly from the screen, and you can manipulate the data from there. So that source data will come in, and it will be enriched with various other functions. We're going to take a look at one more function here while we're in this configuration modeling screen. We'll take a look at this join function, where you can see the different rules, and the tool is robust enough to handle all the inner and outer joins that are out there. But on this one, we're doing a union, where it'll take everything from the left and the right side tables. So very easy to manipulate and join source data and have that ready for your downstream functionality or next functions that are in step in your calculation. Okay. So next, we'll come back to our main screen. And then we'll take a look at the modeling history, and this is the audit. So this will tell you who changed what, when. And as you can see, you can pick one of your environments on your left-hand side. And on the right-hand side, it will actually tell you all the functions that's been changed or created. And you'll see the user's name on the right-hand side, when they changed it in the middle, and then whether that was created or changed. So what's really nice is, again, you can actually click on that link and go find that item that's been changed. You don't have to go and hunt for it on another screen. So very nice way to interface with that audit log screen. Okay, coming back to the main screen once again, I'll show you the application monitor tile. And if you have access to this tile, you can come in and check out the performance history of all the functions. And it's basically a log of everything that's been executed. And it will give you statistics on various different functionalities here, and how much time that it took to execute those functions. So a lot of detail that you could dig into for each one of the function executions. So let's come back to the main screen and review what we just talked about. We talked about the My Reports here, which is the main screen for all your results. Before My Reports, you have to go through the processes to build those. Modeling is where most of the action happens when you're building and configuring all the functions for execution and calculations. And then down at the bottom, we saw the modeling history, which is the audit that shows who changed what when. And lastly, we see the application monitor that shows the performance history of all the functions. So that is the end of the quick demonstration. Tom, why don't I turn it back to you?
Great, thank you, Robert. So what's next? If anything we said today resonated with anybody on the phone, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. We can set up a one-on-one discovery call. From there, we can take it to off-the-shelf demo just to show you some of the capabilities of the solution, a hands-on workshop, and then eventually, if you'd like to see some of your data and or processes in the system as well, we can do a custom demonstration. So if you're interested, please contact your account executive or myself, Tom Heaney, at thomas.heaney@msg-global.com, and I'll leave that up on the screen for a second. And then I think, we got a few questions in the chat, so, after this, I think we'll take a few of those and answer them for you guys. Okay, so before we do, thank you again for everybody for your attention and for joining today. So Robert, we could probably split these up. The first one I can take if you'd like. The question was, how long is a typical implementation? And this can vary greatly. Because there's not heavy scripting or coding, we usually aim in the range of 4 to 7 months. And that, again, depends on complexity, the number of data sources. But it's not, with a relatively small team, it's not a really long-tailed implementation, again, because there's no requirements for heavy scripting or coding. Okay. The next one, is HANA Enterprise a prerequisite? No. So you do need HANA, but it could be runtime, it could be enterprise, it could be HEC, it could be, it doesn't matter. It's very flexible. And it doesn't matter exactly where you put it either. If you have multiple instances of HANA, it can reside on the box that your BPC does, it can reside on the box that your ECC does, etc. Robert, do you want to take this one? It's, can SAP Business Objects data or SAP ECC data be connected to FSPER?
And the answer to that is definitely yes. Actually, FSPER comes with some hooks that are built in out of the box that will connect to your CO or FI information. So BO is not a problem as well, and we have a lot of interfaces that can be called upon to connect to those data sources.
Great. Okay, another one, when BPC data is loaded and changed in FSPER, will those changes be updated back in BPC?
That can be configured because BPC is basically a BW application. We can definitely write back to those ADSOs that the BPC is referring to for its reporting and planning. So those data sources can definitely be manipulated bidirectionally. It can be consumed from BPC, and then it can be written back to that same object that BPC uses.
Okay. And last one here, Robert. My current BPC version has multiple modules. Plan and actuals are in 2 different modules. When can this be combined in FSPER?
That should not be a problem. Even though each one of those categories, the plan and actuals, or even if they're different modules, we can go find the sources of those inside of BW, and then we can actually combine them into one FSPER application if that makes sense. So it depends on your use case, but technically it should not be a problem.
Great. Thank you, Robert. So I think that's it. Ivanka, I don't know if there's anything else you need to add, but again, we really appreciate everybody taking the time, and thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Thomas, and thank you, Robert. Thank you also from SAP side. We will follow up and send the presentation. If somebody needs more information, please reach out to us. You can reach out to me. You can reach out to Thomas and Robert. We appreciate very much your time and your interest, and have a wonderful day around the world. And thank you for being with us today. Thank you. Goodbye.